So just popping on live on Instagram as well, so we can do both at the same time. Great way to do a bit of content. So as noted on my story earlier, we're going to basically talking about cardio for fat loss, and is it crucial to do cardio if you're in a fat loss phase, and is it even necessarily at all to do cardio when you're trying to lose fat? So just make sure if you've got any questions on YouTube or either on Instagram, please send them over anytime and I'll answer them either in today's live as we go, or we can put them in the next live next week, which I'll be doing every Monday anyway, because the kids now are in school, so we can do that. So as I said, we're going to look a bit about, is cardio necessary for fat loss, and is it crucial? Do you have to do it, or can you get very lean and can you lose body fat without doing cardio whatsoever? Now, to start off with, the reason that we lift weights, let's start with that. We're lifting weights for the main reason of trying to gain muscle mass in a fat loss phase, but most predominantly when you're trying to lose fat, when you're in a deficit, you're going to actually be lifting weights to ensure that you don't lose any muscle mass more than actually trying to gain. The more, if we lift weights at least one time a week, 2 even better, 3 even better still, and be in a calorie deficit over time, then you will definitely lose fat and not lose any muscle mass at all. And that's our main goal. We don't want to lose just weight in general, even though if you're extremely maybe overweight and we need to lose a lot of weight for your health reasons, maybe your doctor's told you and things like this. But the main reason what we want is to maintain as much muscle mass as possible and lose the body fat. Because what you want, the muscle mass is absolutely crucial, because you want to maintain that, because that's why people think that their metabolism is broken, and it's not actually broken. That's all it is you haven't got much muscle mass at all in your body. So you only need a very small amount of calories per day to sustain where you currently are. So for you to be in a deficit, you need to be an extremely low amount of calories compared to someone that's very muscular bound, gain muscle mass and lose body fat at the same time. As I said, 1 time a week minimum. You have to lift weight at some point if you want to minimize that fat loss phase, if you like. So once you've got that in place, once you've got that muscle building and gym based weights section sorted, then we can look at, right, we've got that stable, but the weight is not necessarily there to burn more calories. It's just there to maintain muscle mass and, if not, build more muscle mass. So the first thing we need to do to ensure that we're in a deficit, and the most important aspect, and people trying to hide behind this and people trying to hide against this, is the food. It's all the calorie consumption. It all comes down to the food. That's the easiest way, as in simplest way, I should say, to make sure whether you're in a deficit, to make sure you are consuming a certain amount of calories, but not going over your threshold when it comes to your calories from day to day. Let's see what we got here. So if you're making sure that your calories are under, then you will lose body fat, and it's as simple as that. We have to make sure that we're in that calorie deficit all the time. And concentrating on the food is the easiest way to do that. Obviously the protein then is absolutely crucial. Protein is a big hit these days, and that's why a lot of people are focusing on it. We need to make sure that protein is nice and high to ensure that we maintain as much muscle mass as possible. The things that build muscle in the muscle building phase is what keeps the muscle when we're in a fat loss phase. So it's so crucial that we are focusing on that as well. But if you're always focusing on the cardio element, which we will be talking about in a bit, we want to ensure that we are lifting weights as well and sorting out our calories. Don't just hide and trying to go running to lose body fat. It's not going to work long term. It's not sustainable long term, and that's why I'm doing this video, maybe more than anything else. So you must control overall energy output as well. A lot of people focus so much on the gym and training, but what we're not focusing on, a lot of people don't focus on, is their daily activities from day to day. Your NEAT, your non-exercise based activity. It could be walking, could be gardening, could be going to the shops, just doing your day-to-day life, basically. And then from there, over time, that will play an impact. But how do we measure that is one thing we need to focus on. How do we measure our daily activities? That's why I always use steps when it comes to using a activity tracker of some sort. Your phone won't really do any benefit, because sometimes we put the phone down, so it's not very accurate long term. but we want to make sure that we are focusing on managing that as well. When it comes to fat loss, we need to manage every single aspect of the calories in and out, our energy that we're exceeding and the energy we're taking in through food. So the way we focus and manage our activity from day to day is our steps. That's why we know, okay, if you see on your activity tracker that you've only done 5,000 calories, but your coach has told you that you need to do 7,000 steps per day, then you know I need to go for a 20-minute walk. That's how we manage that over time, because you might be still eating the same thing, but if some days that your activity output is lower, then you cannot. If your activity is lower, then you won't be in that deficit long term, and that's where people struggle. They say, "I'm eating the same thing. Why am I not losing weight?" Well, most likely you haven't moved the same amount that you have done previously. And also, a side note on this is, as you do lose fat to get to a certain point, your body will almost down-regulate itself to not burn as many calories. Now, that's not saying, a lot of people think that's like starvation mode is a thing. Starvation mode is not a thing. So what that happens is, once you get in a fat loss phase, you're basically not moving as much. You'll find that instead of going for a walk, you'll opt to, basically because your body's tired, your body will make you sit down. You won't be moving as much. You generally won't be fidgeting with your hands like I am on this video. Small things like this play a huge aspect long term when it comes to that, because you might burn an extra 300 to 400 to 500 calories per day just from fidgeting and just from walking about. You might find that you're sitting down rather than standing up. Things like this play a massive role because your body's trying to down-regulate that fat loss, because it's very expensive for the body to burn fat. So I'd say, where does cardio come in? Where does cardio come in? And that's the why I wanted to make sure that we are sorted with the weights, the food, and also the physical activity first before we jump into the cardio. Now, the cardio is a tool we have in the toolbox. When it comes to changing our bodies, losing fat, gaining muscle, we want to try and get as many tools as possible in our toolbox that we can bring out when plateau occurs. So the main reason when I start to put any type of cardio into people's training, if we find that the plateau occurs, and I ask them, right, where is your diet now? How is your diet quite steady, or have you been overeating? If they say no, it's been sorted. Okay, what I say is I'll add in some cardio as a tool to. That's all the purpose of that cardio for fat loss, is to exceed more energy throughout the day. Now, that might be a 30-minute stationary bike, so-called, making your heart rate and maybe a zone 1 or a zone 2 heart rate. Very low intensity, steady state cardio for a certain allotted time. Now, we might start doing that. If you do 30 minutes of that every single day, where each 30-minute session could burn 200 to 300 calories per session, then over time, that might not sound a lot. It might not sound a lot that if you're burning 300 calories on the bike for 30 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot. You wouldn't think that makes a huge difference. And it won't make a huge difference in that day. But if you do that every single day, you would almost burn, what did I note down here now? You would burn between 1,400 and 2,100 calories per week. That's basically a full day of eating that you have just cut out because you've done that cardio throughout the week. So that's all you need to do is your 30 minutes of cardio every single morning will equate to not eating a full day. So that just puts you in even more of a deficit long term when it comes to that fat loss phase from there. And the problem is people focus so much on the exercise and the cardio element, as I was noting about earlier, that they don't focus on the main aspects. That's why I started this video with that. When it comes to making sure you're lifting weights, making sure that you're pushing yourself with your arms and weights, making sure that your calorie consumption is managed. That suits your lifestyle, of course. But then from there, we need to ensure that we're doing our physical activity through steps, managing that through steps. And if all of those elements are sorted, then we can start thinking about cardio and putting cardio into your plan to ensure that you are making sure that you're in that calorie deficit over time, to ensure that you are actually losing fat going forward. And that's the reason why we do add cardio in. Well, I add cardio into the people I work with is programs when the time arises that they don't want to decrease any more of their food intake. Because sometimes people think the only way that we're going to drop body fat is to drop the food and really restrict ourselves really hard. But there's other tools we have in the toolbox to ensure that we're losing fat without actually restricting ourselves even more and more and more. That's even to the point where we think that we're eating like a bloody rabbit, and that's not what we want long term, because that's not sustainable long term. Because what will happen is, if you're restricting yourself so much to the point where you're barely eating anything, number one, you'll get fed up with the whole process. But secondary, what happens then when you actually lost the weight you're happy with? Do you go back to the normal way of eating, or do you have to eat like a rabbit for the rest of your life? And that's not a life that's really nicely lived, to be honest with you. So that's when it's so crucial that we've just used those tools in our toolbox all the time. When we see that body fat go up, that we know we can use these specific tools that just to pull it back down. And then over your life, that's how it will be when it comes to birthdays, Christmas, family get-togethers, holidays, massive piss up on the weekend. All of these things will be a part of our lives, but we want to ensure that we have the right knowledge and also the tools in the toolbox to use when we say, fuck, okay, I have gained a bit of body fat here, I need to drop that back down, and I know exactly how to do it because Kerith or anybody has shown me and taught me how to do this correctly. And that's all I need to do is make sure that I come back to my fundamental foundation of eating. I know I'm having my overnight oats or my protein shake in the morning and my banana. I know I'm having my chicken wrap, maybe chicken salad wrap for lunch. I know I'm having my beef chili fucking taco thing for the evening. And I know I'm having my Greek yogurt in the evening with some berries and some honey or whatever that, obviously, everyone's different when it comes to the food generally. So you go back to that normal way of eating, then you go, right, I'm going to make sure I go to the gym now. I'm going to be lifting weights maybe once or twice a week. Once a week is absolutely fine if that is at home or in the gym. And then if you find, okay, I've lost some body fat, but it's plateaued a bit. Why is it plateaued? Why is it not working anymore? Is it working anymore? Yes, it is. It's just plateaued. That's all we need to do then. Okay, I'm going to add 2 or 3 sessions a week in of cardio there. You can do at home on a stationary bike. You can even watch a film. You can even watch TV. You can even play on your phone for half an hour. But at least you're doing something that's going to help that fat loss phase over time. And if we find that you plateau again after doing that cardio 3 times a week, that 3 times a week might become 4 times a week. And over time, that'll just accumulate to the point until you are at the body fat and the body weight you're happy with. And then from there, it's just about the maintenance phase then and going into that muscle building phase to ensure that we're raising that muscle mass. Because if you're raising the muscle mass, what happens is your metabolism will be increased, which means that you'll be able to eat more calories and not gain that body fat back as quickly. So a lot of people think that, oh, my metabolism is broken. No, metabolism is not broken. You just have fuck all muscle on your body, and that's why your metabolism is low. That means that you've only got a small amount of calories you're allowed to eat until you start gaining body fat. So someone that's very, very muscular, maybe a rugby player, they might be on 3,000 to 4,000 calories per day and they won't gain any weight. Whereas someone maybe that's a much shorter, not very active, not very muscle bound, will be only able to eat maybe 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day before, if they go to 13 or 14 or 1,500 calories, they will gain body fat. And you say, why is he not gaining body fat and I am, and I'm on less calories here? Because you have less muscle mass. That's why we make sure that we are lifting weights at the same time as we're doing that fat loss phase. So I hope you've made sense of everything I've blabbered on for the last God knows how much time I've been on YouTube and on the Insta. If you've got any questions, always I put on this morning actually a question box on my Instagram as well. So if you've got any questions also on the YouTube, put them up, and then every Monday I'll be doing a live like this, so I can explain a different topic when it comes to either fat loss, muscle building, strength gains, life shit, mindset stuff, mindset shifts as well, positivity, all that shit as well. So if you've got any topics that you want me to cover, please send them over to me in my DMs, slide into my DMs, and then we'll go through them every week, hoping that it's going to help even one person feel happier and healthier going forward. Lovely. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd, and I will see you next week. As always, if you've got any questions at any time, just send them into my DMs. I'm happy to help anyone. That's the plan. Diolch yn fawr i chi.